On behalf of 24houranswers.com, I welcome you to today's lesson. In this video, we're going to talk about limits involving infinity. And technically, when we approach infinity as x gets close to a certain number, when we talk about limits, in the past we do say limits or the limit does not exist. And that is correct, but sometimes it's okay to go ahead and say, hey, is shooting off to positive infinity or shooting off to negative infinity, because that can tell you how the graph will look or how it behaves as we get close to a particular x value. So a graphical approach here, we have this function f of x, and we do have some vertical asymptotes here. And notice this first question, the limit as x approaches -1 from the left, so this is a one-sided limit, as we approach -1 from the left of f of x. So we're getting close to this value, and we're getting close to this value coming in from the left. So one would say the limit does not exist, but really what we want to talk about here is just to describe what's happening. So what's happening to the y value as we get close to -1? We can say, hey, that thing is shooting down forever, so it's approaching negative infinity. What about as we approach -1 from the right? It's not going down forever. As we get close to this -1 value from the right, we're actually shooting up forever. So that's going to be positive infinity. Now, that's very helpful because this is telling us what the graph is doing on the left side of -1 and what the graph is doing on the right side of -1. Now, do not always make the assumption that one's going to shoot in one direction and the other one's going to shoot in the other direction. That is not the case. In this case, visually, we can see that because now in our third example, as we approach 2 from the left, so we're approaching this x value of 2, coming in from the left-hand side, we're shooting up to positive infinity. And it actually turns out the same thing is happening as we approach 2 from the right. In this case, it is also shooting up to positive infinity. Now, this is going to be very helpful when we start curve sketching, when we start talking about how a graph behaves as we get close to a particular vertical asymptote. Again, a video on vertical asymptotes, there's going to be one tutorial devoted solely to that, the true definition of a vertical asymptote. We actually see 2 of those right here. We see one right there when x is -1, and we see one right here when x is 2. And oftentimes your textbook will actually show dotted lines there to kind of emphasize that we have a vertical asymptote. Now, technically, these limits do not exist in the true definition of a limit because we're not approaching specific y values, or, in this case here, we're approaching 2 different y values. But again, it's still good and intuitive for us to have or know these types of infinities or negative infinities because it's telling us what the graph is doing on the left-hand side of some x value versus the right-hand side of some x value. So there you have it, a quick video on limits involving infinity with a graphical approach. The next video coming up will involve you being able to do these maybe without a calculator or without a graph, and it involves you to think about how numbers divide. But more on that coming soon. And that's it for this video. I hope it helped. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel for more videos. Links to our social media are in the description below.